Most people think venture capital is just about funding startups. But what if I told you that the real secret to building billion-dollar companies isn't money, but mindset? We live in a world obsessed with short-term wins. Leaders are pressured to show results every quarter, but history tells us a different story. Amazon, Google, and Tesla weren't built overnight. The biggest risk? Not failure, but missing the one outlier that changes everything.
It's now kind of obvious that Amazon or Apple or Google were the right bets. But back, everyone in the room agrees that this is the company to make a bet on, then something might be wrong with the company. Maybe that's not bold. Their main fear is not about losing money, because if you lose money, you just lose 1x. If you lose Google, you lose 10,000x. So their fear is to lose that potential Google.
So how do you train yourself to see what others miss? How do you make high-risk bets that redefine industries? Today's guest, Alex Dang, has been at the heart of these decisions. As a former Amazon and AWS product leader, a McKinsey partner in Silicon Valley, and a Stanford GSB graduate, Alex has helped global executives build and scale transformative businesses, from artificial intelligence-driven healthcare to digital commerce. Before we dive in, a quick ask. If you love real insights from top investors and entrepreneurs, hit follow right now. It helps us bring even bigger guests and deliver more valuable content straight to you. If you want to predict the future, look at where venture capitalists invest today. The most transformational technology of the next decade, it's probably something we can't even name yet. This conversation will challenge how you think about innovation, decision-making, and the future of business. Stay with us, because what Alex shares today might just change how you invest your time, money, and ideas. Let's dive in. See you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling you, Christian, from Silicon Valley, right from the center of innovation and venture capital.
Can you do me a favor at the beginning? I often hear Silicon Valley, and I use this term broadly. And when I think of Silicon Valley, I basically think of California. What exactly is Silicon Valley?
It's actually a very good question. So it's a northern part of California, very close to San Francisco Bay Area. It's the kind of a peninsula in between San Francisco and San Jose. San Jose is a place where you may think of where semiconductors are born, where all the older technology companies, which were a foundation for Silicon Valley. That's why the name is Silicon Valley. And nowadays, you can, in the middle of it is Stanford, as well as Berkeley. And now you can see more companies in San Francisco and headquartered there. So majority of companies that you may think of, Silicon Valley companies like Uber, will be located there. But pretty much every company, Apple, Meta, or Facebook, Alphabet, they're all headquartered somewhere around where my house is. So you can drive 30 minutes one way or another, and you will hit one of these phenomenal, transformational, revolutionary companies.
That's really a great area for you generally to live. I mean, you are surrounded by the world's best VCs and entrepreneurs.
That's right. And I do think that I would definitely place entrepreneurs first, because that's their talent, which is building the whole innovation culture. VCs are a critical element of this ecosystem because they find and fund. And nowadays, all these big VC-backed corporations, which once were funded by VCs, are now part of this ecosystem. We can mention similar names that we've just not mentioned, like NVIDIA, Microsoft,
Yeah.
Amazon, Google. They're now part of this ecosystem.
Yeah, that's good. We are still at the beginning of 2025, and it's the prediction time. And I'm curious to hear what's on top of your mind in this year.
Look, I think some topics will be very similar to your other guests, I would assume. I have an applied math and economics degree. I spent some time in computer vision as early as in 2003, and then was part of AWS AI team in 2018. So AI is certainly something that drew my attention very early on, and I felt that this will have an impact. Nowadays, it's pretty much a common sense that AI will change the world. The question is how it will change the world, at what pace, which industries. I'm now very excited about what's happening with ChatGPT and Gen AI, and I would call them entertainment applications. But at the same time, I think the most transformational impact will be happening in more traditional industries like agriculture, manufacturing, energy. I think that's where the impact of AI and Gen AI will be transformational. So I'm constantly thinking of different use cases and what will be the impact that this new technology wave will bring with it. And I do think that's a wave. It's someone who is calling from Vienna. I think you're very familiar with Schumpeter's innovation waves, and that's definitely seems like a truly big innovation wave that will change the world. And the world is, I think, is a critical point. I also travel a lot. I've visited many countries in the past, thanks to the book as well as to my work. And I see that there is some expectation that it's not going to be just Silicon Valley. People do believe that Silicon Valley found some kind of a formula, and there is one, but it feels like, and I think we will see more Silicon Valleys in the next, maybe not next year, but in the next decade, and certainly in the next generation. So we will see, I'm pretty sure, hubs in Berlin or Vienna, in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, in Riyadh or Beijing. Actually, we already see that. It will just have more power and more impact, and therefore we'll have to think about Silicon Valleys or hubs, innovation hubs in the world, with each hub potentially representing a very specific area. It could be semiconductors in Taiwan. I've just talked to a very big R&D lab, and I do believe that Taiwan may become the semiconductor innovation hub, and many, many others. So it's another question to many leaders would be what their hub is going to be about, what is going to be the core focus. That's probably the second important topic. The third one is that I do feel that many former VC-backed companies will play a bigger role. They have such an access to capital, and they are profitable nowadays, and therefore they have this capital to allocate and to dedicate to innovation. So to some extent, the role of VC used to be to invest in emerging new ideas. I think that many corporations, especially technology corporations, will play that role as well. So they will not compete. I would rather say they will complement VC investments. These are three big topics which are keeping me busy: AI, what's going to be the next Silicon Valley, and what's going to be the role of corporations in the future.
What's your guess? What will be the next Silicon Valley? I mean, the size of this Silicon Valley. What's
I think
your
we'll
best
have
guess?
many. I think we'll have many because nowadays the world is so complex and way more developed. Therefore, you will see these spots of innovative ideas anywhere in the world. So as I'm visiting Middle East, every single visit inspires me because I can see so many new ideas from Kuwait, and again, or from Dubai or from Riyadh. These companies and startups are coming here to Silicon Valley to learn. They're coming back, and now they're building their companies. The same thing happens with Europe. I think it's just more about what kind of a niche each of these players will play in. And these niches are numerous. Now we're all thinking about AI, but what about biotech and longevity? What could be more valuable than our health and lifespan? I think we will spend more time, effort, money on our health. And I spent some time as a co-founder, the CEO of a health tech company, Cancer Compass.
Oh, cool.
And you could see the advancement in cancer treatment in the past 20, 30 years has been tremendous. And now I help another startup in Alzheimer's disease. I help a company in AI drug discovery. We will see a tremendous wave of new ideas. Hopefully, some of them will be funded, and hopefully, and I'm kind of pretty sure that some of them will become very impactful startups and ideas.
That's good to hear. The majority of my audience is from the biotech and pharma field. So they will love that you also have some startups in Silicon Valley, and potentially they can approach you when they want to access the ecosystem and have now another person, another qualified person who can help them.
Totally. And healthcare is such a complex space that we will see innovation waves across the board, from healthcare and hospital networks to clinics to drug discovery to life sciences to how to make sure that we are healthy in terms of mental health. So there are so many aspects of health and longevity that there will be a lot to do. And look, I mean, we're all familiar that the US is to some extent is leading the way in terms of the spend on healthcare. But I'm not sure that many executives here in the US would be proud of stating that because it's also an excessively expensive care and treatment. So it's going to be, and it gives a huge potential to improve the efficiency of the system. So we will see a lot. That's what I'm sure about.
That's true. The healthcare industry meets this week a little bit north from your place in San Francisco. It's the JP Morgan Health Innovation Week. Before we dive deeper into this conversation, for the listeners, what are the 3 core messages that you would like to bring across in this episode?
3 core messages. So first of all, Christian, thank you so much for even giving me a chance to share these messages with your audience. Look, I think there are 3 different audiences here. So for startups, I would say, if you pursue your idea and you need venture capital, try to understand how they think. That's of a critical importance to learn and know what is the mechanics behind the scenes. What is important, what is not. We've written our book, The Venture Mindset. I'm not sure whether you had one. I have one right in front of me. I will show it to your audience, though. This is the US version. If someone speaks Mandarin, this is the Mandarin version.
That's great.
There are so many different versions in Korean. There will be one in Russian. There will be hopefully one day one in German as well. So my piece of advice, at least read the book, but ideally learn about the space so that you will learn how the decision is made, because this will increase your chances to raise capital and be fit for the industry. For corporate leaders, I would actually recommend follow VCs. My learning from my research and from working with the VC industry is that they predict the trends. Many of their bets, they take some time to materialize into big businesses, but they're so often are great pickers of big ideas. So if you want to know the future, probably look at where VCs invest their money now. 80, 90% of these ideas will be nonsense. They will disappear. They will never materialize into anything meaningful. But 10 to 20% will be these big transformational companies. So if you want to predict the future, I think that would be the best way to see the trend. For everyone else, like for general audience, for decision makers, I think the level of uncertainty today is so high that I would just recommend to at least blend in a different mindset and a different toolkit, in addition to what we call a traditional toolkit. So the traditional set of rules, how you plan, how you make decisions. Venture capitalists somehow, because that's what they do for the living, they live in this kind of an environment where risks are high, and they had to come up with some set of rules. We outline these rules in the book. Hopefully we'll be able to cover a few, but this is a toolkit that you may just apply in your day-to-day decision-making, especially when the risks are high, when you do not know what will happen in the future, when you do not know which technology will take place, when you do not know whether that would resonate with the user or not, especially in healthcare industry, where you never know whether that clinical trial will be successful or not. And the biotech industry was built by VCs to some extent. Therefore, just borrow some rules from them, and that may help you make better decisions, not just in business, but in your everyday decision making as well.
And we can proudly say, or I can proudly say as an Austrian, that Eugene Kleiner Perkins, they invested in Genentech, and Kleiner Perkins was funded by someone who has Eugene Kleiner, who has roots here in Vienna. So it's also a great place to be. Alex, thank you very much for writing this book. It's one of the best books on venture investing, and especially when your title, The Venture Mindset, is just genius. I wish I had this book 2006 when I got in touch the first time with venture capital. It was with a Novartis spin-out. It was the department of Rodger Novak, who later founded CRISPR Therapeutics with Emmanuel Charpentier. And I was responsible for finances. And the first time I looked at the balance sheet of the company, I was just blown away. I thought, this company is just burning capital. Why do they invest in this company? Actually, we should rather think about declaring bankruptcy and shutting this company down instead of moving it forward. Back in 2006, there was no literature out on the market that was easy accessible here in Austria. And since then, I use venture investing and venture capital quite broadly, also the term, but never thought about the definition. So my first question to you is, how do you define venture investing?
I think in a nutshell, it's providing early stage companies with their first or almost first capital with an expectation that this high growth startup will succeed and become a multi-billion dollar corporation or a unicorn. Unicorns is defined as a company with a private valuation of 1 billion and above. So that's in a nutshell what venture capital is about. It's primarily about startups, but more importantly, venture-backed companies, which used to be venture-backed 20, 30 years ago, are now to some extent a foundation of the US economy. If you think about all of the top leading companies by valuation in the US, half of them are venture-backed or used to be venture-backed. Top 7, or I would say at least top 7, because more recently, sometimes you can see 9 out of 10 companies are VC-backed companies. Apple, Google, NVIDIA, Broadcom, Tesla, all of those would not be even possible without the VC industry. So venture capital is not just the provider of early stage capital, but to some extent, they are the foundational element of the growth of the US economy and many other economies in the world as well. So that would be my definition of VC. But the book that we wrote, and thank you again for mentioning it, it's actually a book not about VC, but not for VCs. We decided that, and we thought that that would be valuable for every decision maker, not just to learn about the VC industry, but also to learn what are the tools, mechanisms, and rules they use to make decisions in such a complex space. How do they find and fund such innovative companies so early on, before many other larger investors, think of Fidelity and other big investors, or even corporations which were inside the industry, which were inside this, they still missed these technology companies, teams, but VCs somehow did it well. How? This was the key question that we asked ourselves. We combined 20 years of research of Ilya Shrebolov, who's a professor at Stanford, who is an expert, well-known expert in VC industry. I'm a practitioner, so I used to be a product lead at Amazon, then AWS AI, was a partner at EY as well as at McKinsey, serving clients in the technology space. So we decided to combine our effort together to write this book.
You mentioned that this book is not only relevant for venture capitalists and the startup world, but for every single decision maker in every field. So it's basically industry leaders, leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises, politicians, NGOs. Why do you think the venture mindset is relevant for everybody today?
Look, I think the majority, if you think about the management science, it was based on the foundation of and the belief that everything is to some extent predictable, that you have to plan ahead. The whole idea of a strategic planning or financial planning that you've just discussed, Christian, is about making sure that you can plan ahead, 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, and then you analyze the market and you make a bet. Then you wait and just execute on the plan. It's this predictability was key. We just think that that's in so many cases is not relevant anymore. You have to apply a different set of beliefs that the outcome is unpredictable. That when you launch a product, it's not just about the execution. You just can make a mistake, or that product or service may not resonate with the client, and you may have to close the idea and start investing in some other ideas. And that has to be the modus operandi of a new leader or a new kind of a decision maker. So I would not claim that we came up with a new management theory, by no means, but we just think that there are a set of rules and techniques or mechanisms which may help decision makers to rethink how to think about innovation. I can give you a very specific example. What is important? What is more important? The size of a market and a detailed analysis of it, or a team? For any VC, now we have a very clear answer. Ilya's teams surveyed all VCs and asked them what was the most important factor in terms of the success for a startup. And he outlined a few options. We divided that into two big categories: jockey and a horse, where jockey represents the team and horse represents product market fit, total addressable market size, etc. Any VC would immediately respond that the team is the most important factor. Why? Because as you build the product, most likely the service or product will fail, and therefore you may want to pivot or change your business model and find a different way to solve the same problem. And that would be the process that they would follow. Therefore, the team's excellence or the team's effort will be the most important factor in terms of the success. Any traditional organization, and Christian, I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me, would spend way more time on analyzing Excel files and debating the assumptions. And then finally, after maybe 3, 6, 9 months, the plan will be added, or a business plan will be added to the annual review. And then after the annual review, it will be added to the next year budget. And then finally, new recs or roles will be open to finally hire the leader of the team and the first employees of that new business. And this is exactly the opposite of what VCs would do. They would start with the team, not with the idea. It doesn't mean that they would ignore the total addressable market and other factors, but the number one factor will be the jockey, versus within the corporations, it will be the horse. So this is a very specific example where a traditional mindset may lead just to a wrong decision or a waste of time and a waste of resources. And there are many other examples. We actually outlined 9 of them where traditional mindset, which works perfectly well if you're building a McDonald's or a factory where you know the process so well, and where it just simply fails if you deal with anything innovation related, AI related nowadays, but it used to be not AI, but internet, mobile, and just you list them all.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions in venture investing, that the technology and the market is not as important as the team. And interestingly, I work with biotech companies now since 2006, and the majority of early stage ideas that come out of academia prioritize the science and the technology. And I can imagine when the scientists speak with venture capitalists and the VCs look rather on the team structure than the technology, there is a lot of potential for misunderstandings and conflict. How do you see this intersection between startup founders, scientists, and the VCs?
Look, first of all, I have to make a comment then that Christian, it really depends on the industry. So for health tech and biotech, the ratio is a bit different. Still, team is important, but as well as patents and IP and other factors, because it's way more science-based, and it's a lot about the small molecule or DNA sequencing, etc., rather than just about the team. But the team still matters, again, for the very simple reason that at early stage company or early stage corporate startup, you cannot predict what kind of challenges you will face. You will have to overcome them all, and no Excel would help you to do so. You will need a team to do that, and not just the founders, but the whole team has to be incentivized and motivated to overcome those. And therefore, the incentives which are backing these kind of motivation, they have to be structured in a different way. You have to share the benefits of the gain, of the potential win, which is again a bit different from the corporate environment where your fixed amount of salary will probably represent 80 to 90% of your compensation. And if you ask any startup founder here or any startup employee or engineer, I would not say that will be almost the opposite, but to some extent, the expectation is that their fixed salary will represent no more than 10, 20%. The rest will be coming from stock vesting and the success of the business.
I agree to what you say that science, of course, matters. I was a little bit exaggerating, but I think, in my opinion, science, especially in deep tech fields, not only in biotech, but also in other deep tech areas, science is a given. I can't imagine any university, any academic institution that brings out, produces science that doesn't matter or is incomplete or is completely useless. I mean, they know how to do academia. But when I look at the team composure, most spin-outs that I have seen here in Europe, or maybe it's different in the United States, are more or less a bunch of scientists. And when I look at biotech again, you have a lot of challenges to solve. I mean, manufacturing is one. Scaling manufacturing up to commercial level is the next one. Clinical trials is the next one. Financing, regulations, working with governments. There are so many challenges that scientists can cover. So I would also say that even in biotech companies, the team matters a lot.
That's right. That's right. And look, I mean, you've just mentioned a few, not to be going too deep into healthcare, though your audience would appreciate that many corporations are now building an ecosystem to help such emerging and startups to survive better and to